When it comes to horror movie villains, it's almost always about the kills. The quantity and quality of creative death scenes that come at the hands, or I guess tentacles, of the genre's biggest bads are always championed and highlighted by fans, and for good reason. They're the bread and butter of most horror films. Kills aren't everything though, especially when it comes to PG-13 horror, which has to play it more conservatively in what gruesome demises it can and can't show. Filmmakers are still able to deliver terrifying horror baddies that you surprisingly never see do much damage on screen. After all, the genre often wrings more fear out of what you don't see than what you do, and that's never been more true for the following ghouls. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 terrifying horror movie monsters you never see kill. Number 10, Bughuul, Sinister. The thing about Bughuul is that, in the wrong light, he's actually a pretty goofy villain. I mean, there's the name for one, and also the fact that he looks like a rejected member of a new metal band from 2003, but when he used effectively in the first Sinister, the filmmakers were able to make him one scary dude. Having him be this distant apparition, a blurred face who haunted the reels of snuff films, transformed a potentially goofy character into something capable of inspiring fear. That's even more impressive considering Bughuul mostly just kinda stands about. He's not a physical threat, his evil deeds come through his manipulation and possession of impressionable children who he convinces to turn on their families in horrific ways. There are some seriously disturbing deaths across the first two Sinister movies, but the franchise's main villain doesn't get his hands dirty in any of them. Number 9, Blair Witch, The Blair Witch Project. The whole point of the Blair Witch Project is the paranoia over whether the eponymous spirit is even real or not. The found footage movie succeeded because of its no-thrills filmmaking, keeping the perspective centered on the human characters and whether they were truly experiencing supernatural phenomenon or simply succumbing to paranoid delusions. As a result, you don't even see the Blair Witch, never mind actually see her kill anybody. Originally, the creature was going to manifest corporeally for a scene, but the directors cut the reveal during production, leaving the viewer's own imagination to fill in the blanks and scare them silly. To their credit, this was absolutely the right decision, and Blair Witch perseveres as one of the scariest horror icons you've actually never seen. The criminally underrated sequel/reboot Blair Witch did offer more tangible looks at the things caught outside of the camera lens of the first movie, but even these creatures were also confirmed to not actually be old Blair herself. Number 8, The Brundlefly, The Fly. It's not groundbreaking horror insight to say that David Cronenberg does body horror well, but good grief does The Fly only get better with age. The tale of Jeff Goldblum's Seth Brundle's tragic transformation into a man-sized fly is as heartbreaking as it is grotesque, with the different stages of the affectionately dubbed Brundlefly making for one of the genre's scariest monsters. However, while Brundle's new form is certainly monstrous, the character isn't an out-and-out villain like most of the other examples on this list. Part of the horror comes from how his mind, as well as his body, is twisted by the new DNA, as there is a man you feel sympathy for in there who doesn't go as far to ever kill anyone else. That said, the dude is just gross, isn't he? I mean, he's enough to put you off your dinner, and the amount of nightmares he's caused people, spanning decades now, cannot be underestimated. Number 7, The Moonlight Man, Gerald's Game. The Moonlight Man is a spooky development in Gerald's Game. For most of the movie, the Stephen King adaptation is a grounded chamber piece, following Jessie's descent into madness and desperation after being handcuffed to a bedpost. The hours and days pass as she begins to lose it, seeing visions of her dead husband and, eventually, a strange monstrous figure at the bottom of her bed she dubs the Moonlight Man. Even though you just assume he's another hallucination, the creature is no less terrifying. The way he's cloaked in shadow, his unannounced arrival, glowing eyes, and weird foot fetish are all deeply unnerving. However, the horror ratchets up a notch when it's revealed that the Moonlight Man is actually very much there in the room with her. The ending, which sees him jailed, confirms him to be a man with a rare disorder who took to cannibalism and necrophilia, with Jessie being eyed as his next victim. We never see him do these terrible things on screen, but I don't think anybody in the audience was doubting the truth behind them. Number 6, Krampus, Krampus, the hulking anti-Santa Claus from the movie of the same name, takes no prisoners. Across the festive flick, he dooms an entire street and one particularly unlucky family. But despite his strength, ability to jump from rooftop to rooftop like Spider-Man, and demonic origins, a lot of his attacks happen off-screen. Sure, he pulls plenty of people to their deaths and gets the drop on them throughout the movie, but you never actually see him dealing the killing blow personally. He's never in the frame, or the movie cuts away right at the critical moment, and that's when he bothers to even enter the game himself. Most of the more violent scenes are actually performed by his ghoulish helpers, be it flaming gingerbread men or absolutely terrifying porcelain snake dolls that like to eat kids whole. Granted, Krampus himself does throw a child into a fiery pit towards the end of the movie, but it's unclear whether this is an actual death in the conventional sense. Number 5. Jigsaw Saw. Alright, so this is a bit of a cheat, isn't it? Jigsaw, aka John Kramer, has caused the death of potentially hundreds of people over the course of the Saw franchise. But as the character often likes to say, he never sentences anyone to death. Sure, he creates the traps, but they're not intended to kill the participants. Horribly maim and teach them a lesson, absolutely, but they're all technically escapable. Because of this distinction, it's actually a big deal when his proteges, who continue his legacy after his death, start messing with the traps in a way that leaves no option for escape. Putting people in them just to watch them die in horrific ways is a big no-no. Also, you rarely actually see Kramer himself getting his hands dirty. Usually it's someone else doing the kidnapping and setups of the traps, and you never see him directly intervene or end somebody's life. He's certainly a killer, hence the name the Jigsaw Killer, but not in the conventional sense, and it's never him personally doing the deeds on screen. Number 4. Mr. Babadook, the Babadook. Some horror fans like to take the piss out of Mr. Babadook. They say he looks too silly, that his top hat and exaggerated features are too cartoonish to be scary, but they're also wrong. The Babadook is supposed to be a warped version of a childhood boogeyman, a figure literally brought to life by a twisted storybook. He's also partly inspired by horror icons of the Silent Age, all chiaroscuro lighting and suggestion. In the context of the film, it absolutely works as well, and this guy creeping around, croaking out one Babadook, dog, dog after another is creepy as hell, even if I don't do it justice here. And I've absolutely knacked my voice trying to do it. The way he flashes in and out of scenes, the way you only ever see glimpses of details, the impeccable sound design tied to his movements, it all creates one of the scariest monsters of the 21st century. However, this is a film more about the psychological torment of its characters than the supernatural lore of its main baddie, who may or may not even be real, by the way, and as a result, the Babadook doesn't kill anyone. Number 3. Annabelle, the Conjuring Series. Of the many haunted artifacts across the Conjuring series, Annabelle is supposed to be the evilest. That's easy to believe as well. I mean, take a look at it. Who in their right mind would have this thing in their home, especially when you're a kid? Like, the makers of this thing surely knew it would not sell. It is so creepy. Across the mainline movies and now a trio of spin-offs, Annabelle has tormented plenty of people and led them to an early demise, but weirdly, in terms of action, the doll often takes a back seat. Even in the films that she headlines, it's often other spirits and monsters that really do the dirty work, be it werewolves or literal demons. That's because, as well as being evil incarnate, Annabelle also acts as a beacon for other spirits. Being a doll, she does enjoy a spot of chair rocking and head turning when people aren't looking, but she's not grabbing a kitchen knife and hunting people down like Chucky. She welcomes and enables the violence, sure, but it'll be another manifestation of her evil aura that delivers the killing blow. Number 2. Asami Audition. A modern horror great, Audition's Asami is one of the most unhinged villains in the genre. A seemingly innocent, reserved young woman, her true sadistic colours are slowly shown over the course of Takashi Miike's opus. This is a classic slow burn horror, and a lot of the dread comes from the build-up to an explosive finale. It's also supposed to keep you guessing as to what Asami is actually capable of and how twisted her mind is. As a result, it either leaves plot beats open to interpretation or cuts away before you can get a handle on what's actually going on. And even without that, Asami doesn't need to kill you to make you feel powerless, and that's what makes her so nightmarish. In fact, sometimes she proves that there are fates worse than death, for instance being kept in a bag, having bits of you chopped off, and then being forced to eat your own sick out of a dog bowl. I think I'd take a swift death from anyone else on this list than that, to be honest. Number 1. Regan, the Exorcist. One of the most iconic horror characters of all time is one you never actually see kill. That's because the power of the possessed Regan in The Exorcist, otherwise known as the demon Pazuzu, isn't in the kill count, but the torment of the young girl and everyone around her. Now, this isn't to say that Regan is totally toothless. It's suggested that she's responsible for at least 2 deaths, including Father Merrin, who's found dead in her room. But part of what makes that so scary is that you never actually see it. You only see the aftermath and the joy she takes in his death. For the most part, director William Friedkin lets the audience's minds run wild thinking about what she's up to when the camera isn't on her. The Exorcist isn't afraid to get gory, but it crucially knows when to leave things to suggestion, and that's partly why it continues to hold such horror to this day.